Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love to the author and me. On to the show.
The next god has long since evacuated, when Su-Mu, carrying the last power in the real world, chased and killed the three upper gods and a group of middle gods in a posture of almost a god king. Endless magma rose into the sky, and thunderclouds in the sky. The storm was a mess, and the boundary between the real world and the game world turned into a dangerous place, blocking the speed of the blurred gods. Step out. Su-Mu appeared after one of the slowest median gods. At this moment, the scythe of the god of death, which was haunted by the breath of death and destruction, was cut out at this moment, and it was only a slight cut that split the middle god in two. It was severely damaged. He is not dead yet. Roaring in anger, wailing in despair, desperately burning the divine power in the godhead, he abandoned his lower body, trying to escape from this world that has become a desperate situation. Only knife after the sickle is cut out. The innumerable jet black chains around Su-Mu also flew back and forth like a giant python, entangling not only the broken lower half, but also the upper half of the deity's body. Subsequently, the chain of laws tightened sharply, dragged the median god, who has been broken into two parts, into his own abyss world. At this time, inside the abyss world, the wild 693 area on the edge of the world, the abyss lords headed by Sarandu and Olivia have long been waiting for the battle. When the median god, who only had the upper half of his body, was dragged into the abyss world in despair, Sarah and Olivia rose to the sky and attacked the god. It is the dozen or so abyss lords who are only in the demigod realm, who control the laws and rules of the abyss world with their own authority, assisting Sarah and Olivia to fight against the enemy together. As a pit lord, with sufficient authority granted by Su-Mu in the abyss world, Sarah, Indu, Olivia, and Ben can exert a combat power no less than that of the median god. With the help of other pit lords, leapfrog battle is not difficult. A god whose most valuable part is the godhead. The second is the divinity contained in its corpse. In the first outbreak, Su-Mu had no experience and just obtained more than 30 corpses. Now, under the circumstances that can be pursued, he naturally strives to inflict heavy damage on each of these gods, drag this goddess into the abyss world, and turn all his godheads and corpses into his own trophies. After dragging the battered mid-god into the abyss world, Su-Mu ignored it. The first deity arrived. Su-Mu stepped out again and appeared behind the second median god. Death scythe out. The dark blade flashed across. This second median god was also divided into two by Su-Mu. In fear and despair, he was blocked by the chain of law that kept on shuttle and dragged into the abyss world. Turn everything you have into Su-Mu's booty. For a moment, the two median gods disappeared. Even if they are still struggling in the abyss world, they cannot escape the fate of complete fall. And after harvesting the two median gods, Su-Mu's goal has changed. Even with the obstacles of endless magma and the dangers of thundercloud storms, it is only an instant before those gods rush out of the real world and return to the game world. This moment, he has one last chance to attack. A moment later, the gods returned to the game world, and there were three god kings staring at them on the other side. But no matter how confident he was in his own strength, Su-Mu didn't dare to rush out of the real world in front of the three god kings and hunt the gods. One last goal. With a slight flicker of mind, Su-Mu stepped out again. When his figure reappeared, he had already appeared on the boundary between the game world and the real world. He was blocking the way for the golden dragon to escape from the real world. One step away. In just a split second, this golden dragon can leave the real world and return to the game world. Pity, just this moment of time, the unparalleled Su-Mu held the scythe of death and stood in front of this golden dragon. This moment, the movements of the god of justice and the god of fire were slightly stagnant. After a little hesitation, they still chose to escape from the real world and return to the game world, rather than stay and help the golden dragon and let it escape back to the game world together. Just because the black sickle threatened them too much, almost a blow from a god king, If the attack of this dark scythe falls on them, they are really in danger of falling here. Neither of the two upper gods dared to resist. The rest of the median god is even more so. Taking advantage of the golden dragon's procrastination, they rushed out of the real world at the fastest speed, returned to the game world, and returned to their own kingdom of gods. In reality, only Sumu and the golden dragon remain. The sky is breaking. The earth is collapsing. The world is heading for final destruction. At this last moment, Sumu raised the scythe in his hand again, carrying the last power of the whole world, and slashed towards the golden dragon. It is still a blow that surpasses the upper gods and is close to the king of gods. This blow, it is also the last blow that Sumu can cut. After one hit, the power of the real world is completely consumed, and Sumu's combat power will drop again and return to the original level. After one hit, the golden dragon with the power of the upper gods can completely chase and kill Sumu. Escape from reality, return to the game world, and turn the corner. But, originally not at the peak of its strength, but it was hit hard by Sumu again. How could the golden dragon, which had consumed a lot of divine power to recover, block this near-god king blow? No matter how unwilling, no matter how angry, it can only watch the crystal clear, as if the substantive sword light strikes. It is getting closer and closer, getting closer and closer. Roar! At this time, there was a sound of dragon roar that shook the real world that was being destroyed. Game world. Endless void. A golden dragon claw that seemed to be made of the hardest gilded goddess protruded from a huge, immemorial star in the astral world, pierced through most of the game world in an instant, and moved towards the real world, towards the world. Grab it with Sumu on the edge of the game world and the real world. This is the roar of the dragon god. This is a blow from the king of gods. Golden Dragon Claw. It contains a terrifying power that can easily destroy a world. Compared with this golden dragon claw that traverses half the game world, the mountain giant is just an ant, and the whole real world seems to be a small ball under the dragon claw. An angry blow from the real king of gods. When this attack came, Sumu was shocked. At this moment, he almost chose to give up attacking the golden dragon and immediately returned to the abyss world to escape the wrathful blow from a god king. Only when some cryptic information emerges from my mind, Sumu finally chose to cut out this knife. A knife cut through the various defenses of the golden dragon. A knife. It almost split the golden dragon, which was thousands of meters long. When Sumu's knife was cut out, it directly tore the golden giant dragon with the upper god realm apart, making it fall into a state of frequent death. The angry blow from the god king finally arrived. No earth-shattering sound. No light effects to wreak havoc on the world. When the golden dragon claw, which was bigger than the entire world, bombarded down, a thin film quietly appeared, wrapping the entire real world in it. Next moment, the whole world is at a standstill. It's as if, at this moment, the concept of time completely disappeared from the real world. The world stands still. Pieces of fine cracks emerge from that layer of film and spread rapidly, spreading to the entire film in an instant. Subsequently, the first film is broken. A certain area within the world simply disappeared. Not only the land disappears, the mountains and rivers disappear, and the energy disappears, but even the laws and rules in this area also disappear. The disappearance of the first film and the first region is just the beginning. Immediately after, pieces of thin films disappeared, and pieces of regions disappeared. In this weird scene where the whole world is stagnant, all the matter, all the energy, and all the laws that make up the world disappear with the shattering of the membrane. Nothingness. True nothing. Even in the void ocean of the game world, there is an endless torrent of energy surging, but what remains in this broken world is only real nothingness. World destruction. At the cost of its own eternity, this world shields Sumu from that wrathful blow from a god king. In the world, Sumu was unscathed, but the world itself begins the process from being to nothingness. In the dead world, Su-mu has seen more than one. There is the plane of death, which has long been broken, and the laws and 5.5 rules have long been incomplete, and there is no undead world of any world instinct. There are also dead worlds where the laws and rules still exist, and all living beings in it have been swept away. There is also a world where the whole world has turned into the origin of the world, completely integrated into the abyss, and become a part of the abyss. If you use the metaphor of life, the plane of death is like a corpse. The world eroded by the abyss is like a vegetative person who has lost consciousness. A world swallowed by the abyss is like a corpse eaten by beasts. One way or another, a world is dead, it is destroyed, and eventually it will leave evidence of its existence. However, the real world is not like that. When Su-mu was about to flee, the information that came to his mind was the feedback from the real world. The world will help itself to block this blow and help itself complete the final hunt. He just continued his attack. It, or she sacrificed everything in the real world in order for Su-mu to help him complete his revenge. As a result, he was unscathed, and the golden dragon was seriously injured and died frequently. In the world, from existence to nothingness, the real world, after all, is destroyed. Not just destruction. All the evidences of its existence are accompanied by the self-sacrifice of the real world, which leads to nothingness. Su-mu has returned to the abyss world. Not just him. When the last trace of the real world was about to disappear, he dragged the golden dragon and returned to the abyss world with the last gift of the real world. Yes, gift of the real world. Perhaps it was because Su-mu sheltered nearly 1/6 of the living beings in the real world. Or perhaps it was because Su-mu became the carrier of revenge in the real world when the world was going to be destroyed, killing dozens of people. Gods, until the end of the world, until Su-mu witnessed the whole process with his own eyes. The last remnant of the real world took the initiative to appear in his hands and followed him back to the abyss world. At this time, standing high in the abyss world, a crystal appeared in Su-mu's hand. Core of the world, or heart of the world. For the time being, Su-mu doesn't know what the heart of the world does. The only thing he could see was that the heart of the world had a mysterious connection with all the creatures that were migrated from the real world to the game world. This kind of connection, if he is holding the heart of the world, is that he is integrated with the entire abyss world, and it is difficult to perceive 0-1 when viewing it in the form of the abyss devil. As the last gift of the real world, Su-mu has a feeling. The heart of this world. Its preciousness is absolutely beyond my imagination. Perhaps, is your current strength not enough to analyze the heart of this world? After he has successfully conferred a god and has more powerful strength, can he analyze its true role? One way or another, as the only trace left in the real world, Su-mu solemnly took the heart of the world into his storage space and temporarily stored it. A war. Let the real world go to destruction and become nothingness. It is also because of this war that Su-mu gained a lot and became the biggest winner in this reality battle. First, more than 30 corpses of lower gods. A lower god, the god corpse, contains at least 101 points of divinity. These lower-level gods that have existed for at least tens of thousands of years. The divinity contained in their corpses is very likely to have reached 600 or 700 points, or even more. These divinities alone are enough to make all Abyss Lords step into the level of perfect demigods. Even from the existing sanctuary, a large number of demigods have been cultivated. Second, the Godhead and the corpse of the two median gods. When Su-mu returned, Sarah Indu, Olivia, and the dozen or so Abyss Lords had already used the power of the Abyss world to kill the two median gods and successfully acquired the two median gods. The Godhead and the corpse. Kobe still represents divinity. Moreover, the divinity contained in the corpse of a median god is 10 times that of a lower god. The ultimate demigod is the perfect demigod. The level reaches the full level of 100, and the divinity reaches the extreme of 100 points, forming a divine armor, which is the symbol of a complete demigod. From the moment of attaining the status of a god, the concept of rank disappeared. In its place, there is the divinity and the divine hierarchy. The divinity of a deity is similar to that of a demigod. It's just that the gods can condense their divinity by themselves through divine power, and the number of divinities that their divine body can smelt far exceeds that of a demigod. From 101 points of divinity to 1,000 points of divinity, it is the level of lower gods. From 1,001 points of divinity to 10,000 points of divinity, it is the level of the median god. From 10,000 points of divinity to 100,000 points of divinity, it is the level of a higher god. Above 100,000 points of divinity is the level of a god king. On the other hand, the godhead level is a comprehensive evaluation of a god's vocation, power, and belief. 5 levels correspond to a realm. 1 to 5 corresponding to the lower gods. Levels 6 to 10 correspond to the median god. 11 to 15 levels corresponding to the upper gods. Above the 15th level, it corresponds to the god king. Of course, in a sense, the gods have transcended the hierarchy rules. These so-called numbers of divinities and levels of godheads are already an assessment of gods, not demigods, which are limitations. Even if there is a god with 100,000 points of divinity, who has a divine drive and a divine soul comparable to a god king, but whose divine level is only a lower god, it is not impossible. But all the gods, while increasing the number of their divinity, will also increase their godhead level. Divinity. Never have too much. The divine nature contained in the corpses of the 2 middle gods is more than that of the more than 30 lower gods. But their most precious is their godhead. Just like Olivia at the beginning, gaining a godhead can greatly shorten the speed of a demigod's understanding of the priesthood in the corresponding field, and it can also greatly improve its cohesion when holding the ceremony of conferring gods. Your own success rate. The only fly in the ointment is that the 2 godheads are the godheads of the light camp. Finally, is the upper god. At this time, the dying golden dragon was at the feet of Su-mu, firmly bound by the chains of countless laws and rules of the abyss world. Not only does it bind its body, but even its soul is firmly blocked. Su-mu returns to the abyss world. As long as he doesn't take the initiative to reveal the coordinates of the abyss world, he is not afraid of being attacked by the 3 gods. To get revenge on him, to kill him, the 3 god kings must first find the abyss world in the endless void. However, there is no concept of direction in the endless void, not even the concept of time and space. I want to find the abyss world in the endless void, in the countless half-planes, planes, and many worlds. Perhaps 3 gods and kings join forces, and it only takes tens of thousands of years to find them? In this case, Su-mu doesn't have to worry about revenge from the 3 god kings at all. But, after all, the golden dragon is the upper god. Afraid that it has some secret method to detect the spatial coordinates of the abyss world and leak it to the dragon god, Su-mu directly blocked his soul with the chain of laws and put an end to all hidden dangers. An upper god. Its godhead and divinity need not be repeated. It is the same as the median god, but the effect is better. What to do with the golden dragon? On a move. Su-mu appeared in the wild area with the golden dragon, and appeared on the battlefield of Serindu, Olivia, and the dozen abyss lords and the 2 median gods. Su-mu arrives. A dozen abyss lords bowed down immediately. The excitement and admiration in his expression is more like overflowing. They work together to kill the 2 median gods. Even if these 2 median gods have been cut in half by Su-mu and severely injured by Su-mu, killing the 2 median gods with their own hands is enough to make them excited. And their lord, not only did he kill more than 30 lower gods in one fell swoop, and severely injured 2 middle gods, he even captured a golden dragon with the strength of the upper god alive and dragged it to the abyss world. This feat is appalling. Such a feat has never been seen before. If they were not very clear about the growth experience of their masters and their realm, they would all think that their masters were god kings, not peak demigods. 697. So, when Sumu arrived with the completely banned golden dragon, he was greeted with excitement and reverence. Especially Sarah Indu. Don't forget, Sarah's purpose of becoming a god is to avenge the Light Camp. And now, before his own master was conferred a god, he had already killed more than 30 lower gods, 2 middle gods, and 1 upper god. This kind of record, if you let yourself accomplish this, even if he is not taking revenge falling in the process, I am afraid it will take thousands or even tens of thousands of years to have such a victory. Again, Saline could feel how wise his surrender was. Getting his subordinates to stand up, Su Mu pondered slightly. The value of a living golden dragon and a dead golden dragon is not the same. The dead golden dragon was just a godhead, with a huge divinity contained in its corpse. A living golden dragon. The scythe of death slammed out and slashed on the huge body of the golden dragon. When the pale, golden blood flowed out again, Su Mu's mind moved, and he pulled the pale, golden divine blood flowing down like a waterfall toward him. With a dozen or so lords of the abyss who have not yet been conferred gods. Dragon blood forging. According to legend, the blood of the giant dragon has the effect of refining the body and increasing the four-dimensional attributes. The blood of the gods is even more so. An upper god, and it is the upper god of the dragon family. Its blood should be able to greatly enhance the four-dimensional attributes of the abyss lords, right? Dragon blood forging. Using the blood of a high-ranking dragon god to add four-dimensional attributes to more than a dozen abyss lords who are only half-gods. This kind of arrogance, I am afraid that only Su Mu can do it. Whether it is Sarine and Su Mu, they have used their own experiences to prove the power of the ultimate gods. The ultimate god. For ordinary demigods, it is an unattainable achievement. That is to say, Sarine has both opened the clone and Su Mu has opened the data, so that the impossible can be turned into a possibility, and the ultimate achievement of the gods has been achieved at two different heights. The ultimate conferred god cannot be forced. But before starting the ceremony of conferring the gods, it is always beneficial to improve one's four-dimensional attributes as much as possible. Both Sarah Indu and Olivia have been conferred gods, and they can no longer increase their four-dimensional attributes by bathing in dragon blood and god blood, but other abyss lords do not have this restriction. Pale golden dragon blood flowed out. Pulled by Su Mu, he rushed towards the dozen abyss lords, wrapping them all in the pale, golden dragon blood. Take time. On opening the attribute panel of his subordinates, Su Mu can see that the four-dimensional attributes of these abyss lords are soaring. Dragon blood, god blood, dragon god origin. This is something that Su Mu has never enjoyed before. Bathed in golden dragon blood at the level of the gods, these abyss lords dare not say that they pursue the ultimate conferred gods, but it is certain that the four-dimensional attributes will be greatly improved. Every moment, the four-dimensional attributes of these abyss lords are increasing at a rate of hundreds or thousands. A golden dragon with a length of several thousand meters is already in a state of frequent death, and the amount of dragon blood contained in its body is enough to be comparable to a large lake. The blood of the gods. It is more than enough for a dozen or so existences who are only at the level of demigods. Time flies. The four-dimensional attributes of the abyss lords are constantly improving. The speed of its improvement is also fast and slow. The higher the potential and the higher the basic four-dimensional attributes, the more the four-dimensional attributes gained after bathing in dragon blood this time. And the growth of this attribute can also reflect the potential of these abyss lords to a certain extent. After half an hour, the absorption of dragon blood essence by the first batch of abyss lords reached the limit. Even if they continue to bathe, they will not get the improvement of the four-dimensional attributes. This first batch of abyss lords, dwarf kings, goblin kings, bone dragon knights, abyss spiders, dark priests, willis, mist, etc., according to their current properties, according to their current rank. After this batch of abyss lords reach the state of consummate demigods, they will probably be conferred gods with four-dimensional attributes of 400,000 to 500,000 points. This value is a lot worse than Sarine, and it is far from being comparable to Sumu. But among the gods in the game world, conferring gods on the basis of this four-dimensional attribute is already considered to be an excellent qualification. If they find a priesthood that matches their own nature, they can smoothly advance to the level of a median god. After an hour, the absorption of dragon blood essence by the second batch of Abyss Lords reached the limit. This group of Abyss Lords includes Argus, Nightmare Scythe, King of Banshees, Rhoda Monroe, and many other Abyss Lords. According to their current attributes and rank, they will be conferred gods with 500,000 to 600,000 four-dimensional attributes when they reach the state of consummate demigods. Conferred a god with four-dimensional attributes of 400,000 to 500,000 points, it can be called excellent. Conferred a god with a four-dimensional attribute of 500,000 to 600,000 points, that is already the top. In accordance with the corresponding priesthood, it is not difficult for them to step into the level of higher gods in the future. Finally, only 4 pit lords remained: Death Knight Agnes, Desolation Knight Augustine, Abyss Demon Dragon Nefarian, and Ghost Queen Corolla. As the owners of the ultimate profession, the potential of Agnes and Augustine is naturally beyond doubt. Only the power of death mastered by Agnes and the power of desolation mastered by Augustine, when they reach the state of perfect demigods, transform their power of origin into priesthood, and after they are successfully conferred gods. The 2 priesthoods of death and desolation were originally enough to support them to climb to the level of the God King. So does Corolla, as a natural queen of ghosts. Even though at this time Corolla has not yet mastered the ultimate power comparable to that of Agnes and Augustine, her unique background gives her the potential to far surpass other demigods. What she lacks is a source of power that is enough to match her. Finally, Nefarian. In terms of aptitude, Nefarian should not be able to compare with the other 3 Abyss Lords. But Nefarian is an Abyss Dragon. Its predecessor was a Ghost Dragon, a Bone Dragon, and it was originally transformed from a fallen dragon. The same dragon. Even if the faction has long been different, Nefarian and the Golden Dragon are the most compatible. It absorbed the largest amount of dragon blood essence and obtained the most four-dimensional attributes from it. After a dragon's blood exercise, Nefarian became the most rewarding one. An hour and a half. The 4 Abyss Lords are still absorbing the essence of dragon blood, but the blood in the Golden Dragon is on the verge of exhaustion. Brow wrinkled slightly, Sumu slightly loosened the chain of Law's blockade on the Golden Dragon's soul. Under the instinct of survival, the Golden Dragon, who had just recovered a trace of consciousness, instinctively squeezed the divine power in the Godhead and used the divine power to restore his state. Divine power spreads. The wound on the Golden Dragon's body was recovering at a slow speed, but its blood flowed out from the wound cut out by Sumu again. 2 hours. Corolla was the first to reach her limit. Even if she can't compare with the other 3, her current level and attributes are enough to make her a god with 650,000 four-dimensional attributes when she reaches the perfect demigod. As long as another powerful priesthood is found, it is the potential of the God King. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Nefarian was the second to reach the limit. With only 15 minutes more time, when Nefarian reached the perfect demigod, he was able to confer a god with 700,000 points of four-dimensional attributes. This potential, as long as the 2 emotions of anger and tyranny are used as priests, this Abyss Dragon also has the potential to enter the realm of the king. Finally, Agnes and Augustine. For 2.5 hours, they were still absorbing the dragon blood essence. When the divine power stored in the godhead of the Golden Dragon was completely exhausted, the upper dragon god was on the verge of falling, and the blood in his body was about to drain. Agnes and Augustine's body forging had not yet been completed. Subsequently, Sumu directly cut open the body of the Golden Dragon, took out its hill-like heart, and continuously squeezed the remaining blood in the heart, and finally let Agnes and Augustine complete this forging. 750,000 points. It is only 50,000 points away from the 800,000 points limit of Sarah Indu. This attribute This potential is no less than Serindu. Potential is potential. Strength is strength. Just like every player has the potential to grow to the pinnacle legend or even enter the sanctuary, but the players who finally enter the legendary rank are only a very small number of players. The same is true for the so-called God King potential. But Miss Augustine and Sarah Indus. These three are absolutely, Wang Nuozho, qualified to convert potential into strength and will really enter the realm of God King in the future. Press again and again. Bloodletting again and again. Not only the divine power in the Godhead is exhausted, but the blood in the body of the golden dragon is exhausted, and even the divinity contained in its divine body is bleak. If the little bit of divinity is compared to each energy source, in this time and again, the divinity possessed by the golden dragon has probably been squeezed by most of it. But it doesn't matter. Sumu has no shortage of divinity. At the cost of losing half of the divinity of a high-ranking god, he gained more than a dozen abyss lords with greatly increased potential and four-dimensional attributes. In the future, these dozen abyss lords are more than a dozen median gods, several upper gods, and 3 god kings. This exchange, no loss. Subsequently, the side of the god of death was raised and cut off. Even if he lost his heart, the upper dragon god, who was still lingering, couldn't resist the power of the scythe of the god of death. Totally lost. The golden dragon has fallen. Its significance to the abyss camp is the godhead contained in its head and the divinity contained in its corpse. Same as other Kobe, of course. As a high-ranking dragon god, as one of the most famous material-producing races, the dragon scales, keel, and dragon tendons of this golden giant dragon are all top-quality materials for making artifacts. Even after its divinity is swallowed, the ashes of flesh and blood are integrated into the sacred artifact, which can greatly enhance the power of a sacred artifact. Can it be considered to let the golden dragon play the rest of the heat? Dragon blood forging is over. After collecting the corpses of the golden dragon, the 2 middle gods, and more than 30 lower gods, Sumu let these abyss lords under his command go back to digest and absorb the gains of this battle. He himself, it appeared in the sky above an area that was divided by him alone. There is no abyss in this area. Since Sumu was looted together with hundreds of meters of ground, the whole was dragged into the abyss world. When he used his own power to isolate this country and prevent the abyss and abyss exhaust from invading this area, in this area, on the homeland of, except for the countless disasters that have long since disappeared, the whole body seems to be still in the real world and has been preserved in the best possible way. 700. The battle between Sumu and the gods may seem long, but it is actually short. Actually, from the 3 gods and kings teaming up to smash the barriers between the game world and the real world, allowing the gods to come to the real world, to the end of reality and Sumu's return, it took less than half an hour in total. If it wasn't for the nearly 3-hour delay in the dragon's blood training, Sumu would have arrived earlier. At this time, after nearly 3 hours of buffering, these creatures from the real world have basically accepted the reality. Game invasion. The gods come. The gods perish. The devil saves the world. So many things happened in this short period of time. Even the most receptive players finally accepted the fact that the real world has been destroyed and they have entered the abyss world. Then the player, those human beings who have never entered the game world and have never felt all this, are even more difficult to accept this fact. Disaster disappears. The gods disappeared. The great terror that seemed as if the whole world was shattered also disappeared. If they hadn't raised their heads, they would have been able to see the dim sky in the abyss world, the shield that enveloped the entire body, an area. They all think that everything they have experienced before is just a dream. They are incomprehensible, more difficult to accept. However, after repeated explanations by many players around them, they could only accept the fact that the game invaded, the gods descended, the gods destroyed the world, the demons saved the world, and the real world had been destroyed. Sumu arrives. Those many humans and players have not found it. Standing above watching everything in the form of a demon, Sumu's heart also filled with many emotions. Actually, as early as when he first came to reality and appeared in the form of a skeleton god of war, Sumu had already explored the whole thing with his own perception. His purpose, naturally, is to find self. In his previous life, he was a player, a man with upright roots. In this life, he is a monster, an abyss demon that grew up from a skeleton. When he came to reality and participated in the battle of reality, he naturally wanted to find self to leave traces. He wanted to know that the self in this life was reborn into the game world. So, in the real world, is there another self? Pity. The result is no. When Mu's perception swept from the place where he lived in the previous life, and even intruded into the memory of the friend and classmate of the previous life to check, the result obtained is his original home belongs to a young couple in this life. His original friends and classmates have no trace of him left in the memory. His parents, in the previous life, when this moment came, his parents had already passed away. 8 generations of his relatives are also poor. In this life, there is naturally no trace of his parents in his previous life. As if, in this life, when he was reborn into the game world, all traces of him in the real world were also erased. Real world. There is no other self. After getting this result, Sumu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. This result is neither good nor bad. At least, he doesn't have to worry about how to face himself in this life and how to arrange himself in this life. As for, he already had a plan. All creatures on this land will be transformed into abyss species. This will not change. However, with the emotional factors of his previous life in it, at most Sumu will diffuse the breath of the abyss into this area a little bit, transforming them into abyss species at a slow and imperceptible speed. In this way, it can maximize the survival rate of these creatures and humans. Let them basically not die from this erosion and transformation. As for those ordinary people who can still enjoy their lives on this land after the transformation is over, like other abyss species, their lives don't change much except for the regular devotion of their beliefs. Even ignoring the background of the abyss world, when there are countless undead as laborers who can undertake most of the work, the lives of these ordinary people are even better than when they were in the real world. Of course, like technology, the internet, video games, etc., these existences may not exist. After all, the laws in the game world are supernatural laws, not the physical laws of the real world. When the most basic laws that make up the world change, the technology tree developed by human beings over thousands of years will naturally become a pile of waste paper. But just as spellcasters can use various runes to form a rune magic circle to achieve a series of behaviors, such as long-distance communication, reconnaissance, projection, etc., the Dwarf Empire can also use blacksmithing and alchemy as the basis to create a mechanical god of war in reality. Products that cannot be made in the world are generally, if the scientists and technicians have studied carefully, it is not necessarily impossible to restore products such as technology, network, and video games that originally only existed in the real world on the basis of extraordinary laws and many skills such as runes, forging, and alchemy. Even on this basis, a magic technology tree based on extraordinary laws has been created. Worry-free life. Under the premise that everyone no longer has to worry about their own clothing, food, housing, and transportation, they will devote themselves to the study of these memories. There are more than 1 billion people with real-world technology trees as references to create a unique, it is not impossible to realize an alternative magic technology and magic civilization. The future of Sumu had great hopes. This is ordinary people. Then there's the player. Compared with ordinary people, Sumu needs to consider more when dealing with players. Entering the game from reality, the biggest change for players is that they have lost their biggest support resurrection. Yes, even his body and his soul have entered the game world and become a part of the game world. At this time, these players are not much different from the Aborigines in the game world. They still have the properties panel. They still improve their strength in the same way as before. They can still be used as non-vegetables and as tool people to provide experience points for the pit lords. But when reality is destroyed and melted into the abyss, their greatest privilege, the resurrection, no longer exists. In terms of level and volume, the real world may not exceed some high-level worlds in the game world. But the real world is special. With the existence of the real world, there is the existence of players. To be exact, with the existence of the real world, these existences from the real world to the game world can be resurrected infinitely. Now, the real world has been destroyed and turned into nothingness. Even the greatest privileges of the players disappeared. Losing the feature of resurrection, players are no longer the fourth natural disaster that is fearless and dares to challenge all existence. Lost the resurrection feature. Even though these players still have huge potential, their value is not as huge as before. Of course, Sumu didn't mean to look down on players because of this. Once a player, he knew the value of this special group better than all the gods in the game world. Those gods who descended into the real world only regard players and human beings in the real world as potential believers in the future, which is a reckless use. And Sumu, even if he loses the privilege of resurrection, his plan remains the same. In the future, players will still be the most important force in the Abyss world. Mind-moving, Sumu slightly released the protection level of the shield he had set up, allowing a trace of Abyss breath to continuously penetrate into the shield, penetrate into the territory of the body, and erode their bodies and bodies to a minimum extent. The soul, in a subtle way, completes the process of transforming these people from human beings to Abyss species. Subsequently, Sumu returned to the Abyss Hall. In a short period of time, he is not going to assign tasks to the players of the Abyss camp. A dramatic change. It's not just ordinary people who need to adapt. Players also need to adapt. And, after losing the feature of resurrection, even if the number of players is as high as hundreds of millions, accounting for 1/5 of the total number of players in the entire game world, how many of these hundreds of millions of players have the courage to join the war and face the enemies they have faced countless times is still up for debate. After all, from now on, they are Aboriginal people. In the face of weak enemies, they can still crush each other with their powerful strength. If they encounter a powerful enemy, if they accidentally die, they will really die. Ordinary people, Sumu let them develop. Players, Sumu will not force anything. No matter how much magical civilization ordinary people develop, they are part of the Abyss world after all, and they are the power of the Abyss camp. When the abyssal transformation is completed, it is impossible for them to betray Sumu and the Abyss world. Player, no matter what decision they make, give up that dangerous hunt, be willing to be mediocre, and enjoy life like ordinary people. Face the difficulties, continue to experience the situation where they may die in battle, and constantly break through their own realm. It's all their own choice. All Sumu needs is the strong. Not only the powerhouse in strength, but also the powerhouse in psychology. In the absence of resurrection, the most relied on, still dare to continue to experience, participate in the war, break through the legendary rank, break through the sanctuary, and even break through the demigod players. That's the powerhouse Sumu wants. This kind of player is the future of the Abyss world. Humans need time. Players also need time. And during the time when many human beings and players in the big water clearly recognize the reality, Sumu can just be used to refine the last 2 points of divinity so that he can reach the state of consummation and demigod. Then, conspiracy to consecrate God. This may be the best time. The gods have just awakened, and their experiences are all focused on harvesting the power of faith and restoring their own strength. During this period of function, Sumu may encounter the least resistance. When the gods have fully recovered their strength, especially the 3 god kings have fully recovered their strength, based on what they have done in the real world, it is foreseeable that the 3 god kings will personally take action to attack Sumu's consecration ceremony. Impossible. This is an insurmountable hurdle. Dimension demons. The Abyss world is already a large-scale world of level 3, which is equivalent to the Upper God. The continued development of the Abyss world requires the constant initiation of plane wars and the constant devotion of other main material worlds. When the gods were asleep, those demigods were unable to discover the coordinates of the Abyss world through this process. But when the gods wake up, at least the three god kings can definitely find the coordinates of the Abyss world through the devouring of the world by the world. Belief in gods. It only takes a month or two for Sumu to reach a state of perfect demigod and conspiracy to confer a god. As a believer, a wise creature with the entire bottom abyss, he does not lack the power of faith, has various previous insights, and he can also determine his own priesthood at any time. In terms of conferring gods on the flesh, the four-dimensional attribute of 1,000,000 points is the limit he can achieve. Unless you choose to become a god simply by conferring a god in the flesh, giving up your accumulation in the dimension of demon gods and belief in conferring gods, and the possible sniping from the three god kings that may occur during the consecration ceremony, it is still a detour. But the hurdle, it can be said, Sumu's evolutionary path is stuck. If he wants to become stronger, he needs to confer a god. As long as he completes the ceremony of conferring gods, he will never appear again. With only the accumulation of the Abyss world, he can grow to the level of a middle god, a high god, and even a god king. 0. And if he wants to complete the ceremony of conferring the gods, he needs to become stronger, so powerful that he can at least resist the attacks of the three god kings. The real world has been destroyed. Without the blessing of the last source of the world in the real world, he could not release an attack comparable to that of the God King. Without the protection of the real world, he could not resist the attack of the God King. Perhaps the strength of the God King has not yet recovered to its peak. Is it his only chance? One way or another. The last 2 points of divinity still need to be refined. The ceremony of conferring gods is also about to start. Even if the sniper platoons from the three great god kings are seriously injured, they will not be able to hide for decades, hundreds, or even thousands of years. He also has to try, in this desperate situation, can he succeed in consecrating God? Anyway, as long as it is not conferred a god in the Abyss world, as long as the spatial coordinates of the Abyss world are not exposed, the worst case is that the three kings of gods attack, the ceremony of conferring gods fails, and he returns with serious injuries. That is it. Conferred god failed. The big deal was like the other three-dimension demon gods of the Dark Camp. He kept going and hid in his own world. Got a success. As long as he can confer a god successfully, he will have enough confidence to smooth out the strength gap between himself and the three god kings in the shortest possible time. Let the Abyss camp, each standing in the game world. Also let yourself truly become the strongest boss in history. After dealing with the players and ordinary people from the real world, Sumu began to retreat in the Abyss Hall, trying to refine the last 2 points of divinity in the shortest time. At the same time, elsewhere in the game world, the gods who survived the battle of reality have just begun to deal with the humans and players they brought back from the real world. With no emotion for the real world, and no regard for players, the way these gods deal with humans and players, not so gentle. Those who voluntarily surrender and are willing to believe in them will be brought into the main material worlds by the gods and placed in the countries dominated by the beliefs of the gods, just like the Holy Light Empire at the beginning. Those who are unwilling to surrender and rise up to resist will be directly obliterated. With the strength of humans or players, it is undoubtedly a fantasy to hide one's true thoughts in front of a god. Even the human and player 700, who pretended to surrender and waited for an opportunity to resist, were caught immediately and turned to ashes. Either surrender or die. There are only these 2 options. Of course, there are exceptions. There are a lot of players, and before the game invades reality and the gods come, there are not a few devout believers in the gods. Moreover, these players who are qualified to join the temple and become members of the gods are often the best among the players. Among them, there are many legendary ranks, and even the existence of upper legendary ranks. For these players, naturally received extra care. Continue to believe in the gods, everything is easy to say. Those who are unwilling to believe and unwilling to surrender should look at their potential first. Those whose potential is not enough to enter the eyes of the gods will be slapped to death. Those whose potential is enough to attract the attention of the gods will directly brainwash them and tamper with their memories, so that while they continue to believe in the gods, they also become a force under the gods. At this time, Bright Plain, in a temple of light located in the middle of the plain, two figures, one old and one young, are standing opposite each other. The old figure is a sanctuary-level god sacrifice and is qualified to communicate with the existence of the gods. Young figure is a girl, a holy priest from the real world, whose real name is Lucifer, who had already entered the pinnacle of legend before the real war broke out. Lucifer, from the Bald Eagle Empire. In the real world, she was a devout believer and came from a well-known local theological family. When entering the game world and coming into contact with the gods in the game world, Lucifer firmly believed that the goddess of light in the game world was the incarnation of the Lord in the game world. So, when she first came into contact with the temple, when she entered the temple to pray as a believer, this girl showed the qualifications of her saint. Saints are the most precious treasure of the gods. Even a god king, like the goddess of light, has only a handful of saint-level believers. When it was discovered that Lucifer had the aptitude of a saint, the temple immediately pulled Lucifer into their temple and cultivated it carefully. Not just before games invaded reality. Raising Lucifer from an ordinary elite priest to a holy priest at the pinnacle of legend has completely inspired her aptitude and made her truly become a saint of the goddess of light. It stands to reason that at this time, this temple only needs to wait for the gods to wake up, wait for the angel to come, bring the saint to the plane of light, and wait for the reward from the goddess of light. Pity. At this time, the battle of reality broke out. Game invasion. The gods come. Disasters are rampant. World destruction. When witnessing this with my own eyes, Seifer's faith was shaken. It was not the devil who invaded reality, but the true God she believed in. It was not the devil who destroyed her home, but the true God she believed in. The devil she once regarded as a thief is actually a savior. This kind of blow, this contrast, once made Lucifer wonder whether the belief she had always adhered to was correct. It is in this state, Lucifer was discovered by the god of justice, and after bringing it into the game world, she was placed directly on the light plane, not the main material world where she was originally active. Strange temple. Strange clergy. All this did not change Lucifer's state. She is still in autism, and her mind is constantly replaying the scene of the gods descending, natural disasters rampant, and reality destroying. When the high priest of the temple where she once practiced, that is, the great priest of light who discovered his aptitude and cultivated her with one hand, appeared in front of her, the girl finally spoke up. High Priest Grandpa, why? Aren't the gods merciful? Why did they appear in our world and destroy our world? My home. My relatives are gone. It seems to be talking to itself. It seems that he is talking to his last relative, even if this last relative is a relative in the game world, not a relative in the real world. Along with this talk, big tears flowed down the girl's delicate face. Only, no matter how much she talks and how sad she is, it is difficult for her to change the established reality. The crying girl didn't notice. The bright high priest in front of her is indeed her closest grandfather to the high priest in the game world. It's just that when the high priest came, there was a faint holy light hidden in his seemingly normal eyes. Cry, just cry. A wrinkled hand covered Lucifer's head, and the high priest whispered, after crying, you must be strong. You must work hard to grow. As long as your strength is strong enough, you can take revenge on that demon god yourself. The devil? Lucifer raised his head, and his face was full of dazed tears. Yes. Did you forget it? It was the devil who came, destroyed your home, killed your relatives, and kidnapped your compatriots. When you are strong enough, you can kill that devil, avenge your relatives, and save your compatriots." Following the high priest's words, the expression on Lucifer's face became even more dazed. In her mind, memories that were played back again and again have quietly changed. Destroying the real world is no longer the gods, but a white-boned demon god with a height of 1,000 meters and a black mirror. It is the gods who save them. Slowly, the picture of the gods destroying the world and the demon gods saving the world became more and more blurred. The demon gods are destroyed, but the picture of the gods saving the world is getting clearer and clearer. Every time the memory in my mind is played back, the picture of the former is blurred, and the picture of the latter is clearer. When the days on Lucifer's face disappeared, the picture of the gods destroying the world and the gods saving the world has completely replaced the 5.5 side of the picture of the gods destroying the world and the gods saving the world. Revenge. I want revenge. The breath on his body is still holy, but the words in his mouth are extremely cold. When the word revenge was uttered from Lucifer's mouth, suddenly, the breath exuding from her body stepped from the legendary peak to the sanctuary level. At the same time, a layer of silver flames also quietly burned from the girl's body. Flame of vengeance. When the silver flame burned, the clergy in the temple did not react much, and even the existence hidden in the body of the high priest of light did not react much. It's the star realm. When the holy flame of vengeance was born, the goddess of light, who was fully receiving the power of faith and restoring her own strength, suddenly opened her eyes. The line of sight passed through the plains and the world and looked at the location of Lucifer, Vengeance Angel, Abyss Hall. On the throne, Sumu opened his eyes. In less than a month, he finished refining the last 2 points of divinity, bringing the total number of divinity in his body to 100 points, and finally entering the state of a consummate demigod. Divine armor quietly formed. At this time, under Su Mu's skin, a layer of faint dark golden light was constantly flowing. This dark golden brilliance is Su Mu's divine armor. Of course, this is only the initial formation. Wait until Su Mu completes the consecration of God, until Su Mu ascends to the throne of God, until his body transforms into a divine body. At that time, the divine nature, divine body, and four-dimensional attributes are linked together, and the divine armor finally formed is his real armor. Divine armor, a complete demigod. It means that he will also hold his own consecration ceremony next. Long before he closed down and refined the last 2 points of divinity, Su Mu had already arranged for someone to build his own kingdom of God to prepare for the upcoming ceremony of conferring the gods. Original. The best place for a dimensional demon god to be a god is his own dimensional world. In his own dimensional world, even if he encounters enemies sniping, a dimensional demon can mobilize the power of the entire dimensional world to protect himself and complete the ceremony of conferring gods. At this point, for Su Mu, it is no longer applicable. In the actual battle, I am afraid that I have become the target of the 3 kings of gods. Holding the ceremony of conferring gods in the Abyss world will inevitably reveal the coordinates of the Abyss world. By that time, not to mention the completion of the ceremony of conferring the gods, even whether the Abyss world can continue to exist is a question. With the strength of the 3 god kings, destroying the Abyss world is definitely not a difficult thing. God beyond the Abyss. In this way, even if his consecration ceremony fails, he can return to the Abyss world in time. Before saying victory, first saying defeat. It's not that Su Mu didn't have the confidence to successfully confer a god, but that he first predicted the worst outcome that could happen before starting his own god-conferring ceremony. Actually, Su Mu still has a lot of confidence. In the face of the possible sniping from the 3 god kings, a consummate demigod holding the ceremony of consecration will definitely fail. Even with the factor of Dimension Demon God, there is no possibility of success. But Su Mu not only believes in the gods, Not only the dimensional demon gods, but also the physical gods with all four-dimensional attributes reaching the limit value. The three paths to becoming gods come together. Even Su-mu himself doesn't know what will happen to his consecration ceremony. And this variable? This is the hope of his successful consecration. All is ready except for the opportunity. Now, he has already done everything he can, and it depends on whether the variables in his consecration ceremony can make him successfully consecrate the gods, and it depends on this unprecedented road of the unity of the three gods. Whether it can resist the three gods. King's attack. Quietly, one figure appeared in the Abyss Hall. This is the Pit Lord. When Su-mu went out, when Su-mu advanced to complete demigod, when Su-mu used the connection between his souls to let Argus notify those abyss monsters who had gone to the land of conferred gods and built the kingdom of gods for him to leave. These abyss lords also know that their lord is about to be consecrated as a god. So, they showed up. 2 lower gods, a dozen demigods. When they appeared in the Abyss Hall, these Abyss Lords knelt down on one knee at the same time. Please, Lord, promise to let us go together and assist you. Su-mu knew that his consecration ceremony might encounter sniping from the 3 god kings. These Abyss Lords also know that the ceremony of conferring gods on their lords may encounter sniping from 3 god kings. When he just woke up, when the battle of reality broke out, the 3 kings of gods had not collected enough information and did not know the origin of Su-mu. However, when the real-world war, Su-mu broke out and killed dozens of gods with the power of the world. I am afraid. The gods of the Bright Camp, including the 3 kings of the gods, collected Su-mu's information at the first time and collected all the information they could gather about Su-mu and the Abyss world, right? Under these circumstances, it is unimaginable that the 3 kings of the gods do not take action and do not attack Su-mu's consecration ceremony. Get up. On the throne, Su-mu smiled slightly. He understood what these pit lords meant. The intensity of his own battle of conferring gods will definitely exceed the strength range of these abyss lords. They would rather, but at the cost of their own lives, to procrastinate for their lord. Can delay a second is a second. As long as the Lord can successfully consecrate the gods, all of them will fall on the battlefield, and they will not hesitate. Only the enemy to face this time is unprecedented. Do not worry. With a calm smile on his face, Su-mu said, "If I am not sure, this king will not rashly initiate the ceremony of consecrating the gods. The king is strong, and this king is not without confidence. Besides, once the conferred god fails, this king will return to the abyss as soon as possible. It is not so easy to kill a dimension demon even if the real bodies of the 3 kings appear. The king is fine. Just wait quietly in this abyss hall for the news of this king's successful consecration. Su-mu has decided. Those abyss lords can only be silent. Again, they deeply felt their lack of strength. Lower gods, demigods, if their strength has reached the level of the middle god, or even the upper god, I am afraid that in this battle of conferring gods, their master will not refuse their follow. When they reach that level, the 3 kings of the gods will come. They are also qualified to protect their masters and delay time for their masters. Sensing the emotions in the hearts of these abyss lords, Su-mu said nothing. Still maintaining a calm smile, he was deeply drawn, and a space crack was opened in front of him. 700 followed. Step out. By the time the space crack disappeared, Su-mu's figure had already appeared in the void ocean. Under his feet is a broken continent. Above him is a sky that has long been broken. Like the plane of death, huge space cracks appeared in the sky, and endless torrents of void energy continuously poured into this world, impacted this world, and wiped away the traces of existence in this world. Here, it was the place where Su-mu chose to confer the gods. Not in the abyss world, nor in the plane of death. Su-mu chose his land of conferred gods on the edge of the void ocean, in a world that has long since died. Normally, in the absence of gods as protection, This is the best choice for those who are about to be consecrated as consummate demigods. In the most desolate and remote place, even when the conferred god ceremony is opened, the coordinates of the conferred godland will be exposed, but the planes and worlds can still buy them a lot of time. Now, Sumu is about to be consecrated. Under the circumstances that no one can protect him or even help him, this kind of delaying time with the help of distance and the barrier of many planes has become his best choice. Mind appeared in the center of that continent, in the rudimentary kingdom of God that had already been built, until all the abyss demons who built the kingdom of God left. Sumu resolutely started his own ceremony of conferring gods, the land of the gods, standing in a rudimentary divine kingdom like a symbol. Sumu started his own ceremony of conferring gods. I am the abyss, creator of the abyss, the master of the endless abyss, the owner of the power of destruction, the master of the power of fear, the defender of the fallen law, the protector of the fallen. On this void frontier, in this place where all things originate, declare to the world, I will exalt the kingdom of God and ascend to the throne of God. I will be the master of destroy, fear, and fallen, fulfilling the duty of the true God of destroy, fear, and fallen. My honorable name, God of destruction, King of fear, Lord of fallen. Those who honor my name will enter my kingdom of God. Those who are my enemies will be destroyed in the end. Yes, destruction, fear, and depravity. These are the three priesthoods that Sumu has chosen for himself. Among them, the power of fear comes from the halo of fear. The power of corruption comes from the halo of scourge. These two source powers are the source powers that Sumu has long mastered. And these two source powers are no less than the two priesthoods that Desolanda holds. Destroyed. This priesthood is comparable to death. The priesthood of destruction alone is enough to support Sumu's ascent to the realm of the King of Gods. And the origin of this vocation, it comes from the real world, witnessing the destruction of the real world, and the most utter destruction of the kind that ever returns to nothingness. Sumu derives the power of destruction from it. Even his understanding of the law of destruction is above the two laws of fear and depravity. So, when proclaiming the gods and declaring his real name and priesthood, Sumu put the priesthood of destruction at the forefront as the main priesthood after he was ordained a god. Pity. The power of erosion is a talent. It is neither a law nor a priesthood. Otherwise, when opening the consecration of gods and proclaiming the name and the priesthood, Sumu will always regard erosion as his first priesthood. Announce real name. Shake 1,000. After completing the first step of the conferring ceremony, Sumu immediately started the second step of the conferring ceremony. As early as when he was conspiring to seal the gods, Sumu had stored a huge amount of faith power and did not convert these faith power into free points. Now, the consecration ceremony begins. When the 100 points of divinity in his body was running like 100 energy vortexes, the massive power of faith was also transformed by him with a secret method, forming the most initial divine power. Transform divine power. Next is to light the fire. The divine power transformed by the power of faith gathered in his mind. With the lessons of Sarah Indu and Olivia, Sumu had already memorized how to transform divine power and ignite divine fire. A steady stream of divine power poured into his mind, constantly converging and compressing. When this compression reaches its limit, a dazzling light suddenly emerges from the center of divine power. God fire. Use divine power as fuel and power as fuel wood. When the steady stream of divine power continued to pour into it, and when the three source powers that Sumu possessed also poured into it, the dazzling light grew violently and burned violently. Light up his mind. Announce real name. Transform divine power. Light the fire. It took only a few moments from the opening of the ceremony of conferring the gods, and Sumu completed the first 3 steps of the ceremony. His speed is coming. Gods of the Light Camp have not had time to come after they sense the land of Su Mu's conferred gods from the vibration of laws and regulations. Immediately after, the fourth step, gather the Godhead. God fire. It burned fiercely in Su Mu's mind. When the consecration ceremony reached the fourth step, he did not hesitate to put his understanding of the law of destruction, the law of fear, and the law of fallen into consideration, as well as the three source powers that he possesses. He has invested in the divine fire. Gather the Godhead. Divine fire is not a flame on the material level. A demigod's understanding of the law, as well as the source power he possesses, is not a physical existence. When the divine power pours in, when the divine fire burns, when Su Mu puts his three source powers into it, along with his own understanding of the three laws, an illusory thin line sketched out the appearance of a crystal in Su Mu's mind. This crystal is the prototype of the Godhead. Next, he needs to continuously invest in his source power, and he also needs to continuously invest in his understanding of the three laws. Under the tempering of divine fire, one's own source power and one's own understanding of the three laws will continue to fill in this Godhead, which is only a dotted line and exists only in illusion, until the Godhead is fully filled and fully formed. He only needs to link his Godhead with the corresponding three laws, condense himself from an illusory to a real Godhead, and use it as a carrier for himself to communicate the three laws. The condensed Godhead is completed. No doubt, this process is the longest. The deeper the understanding of the three laws, faster the filling and condensing of the Godhead will be. But no matter how fast the Godhead's condensing speed is, it cannot be shortened from hours to minutes or even seconds. Divine power pours in. God fire burns. Divine unity, crazy extraction of the massive amount of faith power stored by oneself. Crazy transformation of divine power, crazy burning of divine fire, and shortening the time needed to condense the divine personality as quickly as possible. Only, no matter how much Su Mu improves his speed and condenses his divine personality based on the three vocations, he still needs at least an hour, 3 times shorter than that of Sarai. Once the Godhead begins to condense, it requires concentration. In the process of this kind of Godhead cohesion, but Su Mu, it is impossible to be distracted by the enemy. At this time, slight energy fluctuations spread out in this broken world. Within the world, a figure quietly descended against the backdrop of the countless energy storms pouring into this world from the void. Our acquaintances, God of Justice. Once, as the God of Justice, who is also called the absolute power among the gods, he was chased by Su Mu, who relies on the world and has the ultimate power of the real world. If Su Mu was an upper god, he wouldn't feel that way. But in fact, the scene in front of him proved that the white-boned demon god who was chasing him back then was not only not a high-ranking god, but a consummate demigod who had just started the ceremony of conferring gods and was just about to confer gods. This is a great disgrace to the God of Justice. Now, here he is again. With the will of the goddess of light and the shame of the past, he came to the land of the gods. In this land of conferred gods, in this void boundary, the existence of this soon-to-be conferred god will be obliterated, not just the God of Justice. When the figure of the God of Justice descended on this dead world, 2 more figures descended from the void and appeared in the land of conferred gods. The same is the upper god. One is the god of storms under the command of the goddess of magic and elements. One is the superior dragon god under the dragon god. Once, when Su Mu came to the real world with the power of the gods and killed the gods with the power of the world, the 3 gods did not take it to heart. Only they know how big the gap is between the God King and the upper god. Only they know that a high-level god has really appeared in the dark camp. As long as they find its trace, they can obliterate it at will. However, when the battle of reality is over, when all kinds of information gathered, knowing the true identity of the Bone Demon God, and knowing the true strength of the Bone Demon God, the 3 God Kings no longer thought so. A dimension demon. In such a short time of birth, It has developed its dimensional world to the level of a high-ranking god, a dimension demon, without the help of the power of the world. When the main body is only a peak demigod, it shows a terrifying combat power comparable to that of a higher god. If it could be successfully consecrated, maybe, after just a few decades and hundreds of years of silence, he will really have the qualifications to threaten the three god kings. Such threats are not allowed. So, when they sensed the opening of the ceremony of conferring the gods, and when they knew that the creator of the abyss world was about to confer gods, the three god kings did not hesitate to send a superior god to attack Su Mu's consecration ceremony. Even Zhao's. Above the star realm, a holy light shines forever, illuminating the void. A golden pupil suddenly opens, penetrating the vast thousand. A lotus flower quietly blooms, traversing the void. Dragon god, goddess of light, goddess of magic and the elements. Although these three god kings have not yet come in person, they are watching the ceremony of consecration from their own kingdoms of God. If the accident happens again, once these three high-ranking gods are not enough to attack Fengshen. If Su Mu can't kill him, even if he is concentrating on his godhead, the three god kings will not hesitate to take action in person. Kill the threat. At the very beginning of its birth, the three kings watched. The three upper gods came. And it is when Su Mu has condensed his godhead, and he can neither attack nor defend. This situation is even more desperate than the desperate situation that Sarah faced when he was consecrated as a god. Sarah Indu, facing only a divine sword. Sarah Indu and Su Mu are sheltered by existences outside of this specification. What about Su Mu? He is facing three god kings who stand at the top of the entire game world. There is no one who can help him and protect him under the watchful eyes of the three great gods. What he can rely on is the department. Only myself.
The battle in the real world was not only affected by the three kings of gods, actually, except for the dragon god, who lost a golden giant dragon at the upper god level. Those who only had the main gods of the minor gods at the upper god level, or the middle god level, the loss was the biggest. So, when Su Mu's ceremony of conferring the gods started, when the three upper gods descended and attacked the ceremony of conferring gods, there are also many gods descending in the form of projections or incarnations to witness this consecration. The three kings of the gods have already taken action. They are no longer qualified to snipe Su Mu, but it is also a good choice to witness the fall of such a dark true god with infinite potential. During the process of condensing the godhead, one cannot attack or defend, and suspending the condensing of the godhead is very likely to lead to the failure of condensing the godhead, and the ceremony of conferring the gods will fail directly. They want to see, how did this person who once beheaded more than 30 lower gods, 2 middle gods and 1 upper god, in the realm of a peak demigod deal with such a desperate situation? How to respond? The attack of the three high-ranking gods has already struck. Even Su Mu is like a perfect demigod of the other, and he can't attack or defend in the process of condensing his divine personality. And hard resistance, even if his, for dimensional attribute is the limit value of 1,000,000 points, even if his divine armor has been formed. Su Mu also doesn't think that his physical strength and divine armor alone can block the attacks of the three upper gods, so at this moment, he directly started his original plan. Start a new -703 round of Fengshen. Yes, God again. It's just that this time, the conferred gods are no longer conferred by beliefs based on priesthood, but conferred gods by fleshly bodies based on four-dimensional attributes. Dimensional devil, faith in God, God in the flesh. These three paths to becoming a god are eclectic and even integrated, combining the advantages of the three paths and abandoning the shortcomings of the three paths. This is the path Su Mu wants. Dimension demon god. He has already achieved it, and it has developed the abyss world to the level of a large world. Faith in the conferred gods has been opened. When he has condensed the godheads based on the three priesthoods of destruction, fear, and degeneration, the belief in the consecration of gods is basically completed. God in the flesh at this time. What he has opened up is the way of consecrating God with the fleshly body that preaches the word with strength. No need to declare your real name. No need to transform divine power. No need to ignite divine fire. When Su Mu opened up his body to be a god, endless aura emanated from him, as if he had broken some kind of restriction. Take time. The void ocean is boiling. In the terrifying roar, as if the world was shattered, the remaining world crystal wall of this world that was already dead was completely shattered. One after another vast torrent of void energy broke through the broken world crystal wall at an unimaginable speed. After the numerous obstacles between it and Sumu, it swept in the direction of Sumu, like thunder, like a storm, like a dragon. When the vast and violent torrents of void energy swept in, the attacks released by the three high-level gods were swallowed up by the torrents of energy, without even a splash. The three high-level gods hurriedly avoided at this moment, staying away from the scope of the torrent of void energy. In the void, there are many dangers. There are some visions that even god kings dare not touch easily. Void energy torrents are like that. No one knows how much violent energy is contained in a torrent of energy. Maybe even a lower god can easily resist. Maybe even the king of gods will be hit hard. It is also common sense among the gods to avoid the energy torrent in the void at the first time. The torrent of void energy engulfed his attack, and the three upper gods did not care. What they don't understand is why at this moment the torrent of void energy appeared, tore apart the only remaining world crystal wall in this broken world, and rushed into the world. Why at this moment, when the torrents of void energy appeared, engulfed their attacks? Why? After the torrent of void energy appeared, it broke through many obstacles and went straight toward Sumu, who was condensing the godhead. It was as if the purpose of these torrents of void energy was Sumu. No one felt that this was Sumu's means of sheltering himself without him. Even if this torrent of void energy engulfed the attack of the three upper gods, when it swept in, everyone could feel the violent aura in the torrent of energy. When the torrents of void energy converge together, an energy storm is bound to form. And this level of energy storm, but even the gods have to retreat. The abnormality in front of them alarmed the three god kings, who were paying attention to this place. This never-before-seen spectacle of sealing magic also aroused their curiosity. Can't help it. The three god kings ordered at the same time to let the upper god retreat temporarily. In fact, when the dozen or so void energy torrents surrounded Sumu and formed a huge energy storm, the three upper gods retreated. It is also difficult for the attack to pass through the energy storm with a diameter of tens of thousands of kilometers and hurt Sumu. Holy light, golden pupil lotus. When the energy storm was formed, when the energy storm, that was enough to tear a god to pieces easily began to give birth to thunder, the three god kings even stopped the process of transforming their divine power and restoring their strength. Obviously, that energy storm came to destroy Sumu, not to protect Sumu only. This is just a conferring god. A god-conferring ceremony that has happened countless times in this world. Why did it lead to the riot of the void ocean? Why did it lead to the attack of the energy storm? God King puzzled. In their long lives, they had never encountered such a situation. Even in the ancient times before them, the gods of the previous generation, who were conferred gods earlier than them, also never encountered such a situation, so they temporarily stopped the attack, waiting for the result of the energy storm's attack on the dark demigod unknown variable. For the three kings of the gods, the scene in front of them is unknown. For Sumu, all this is happening now, but it is the variable he has been waiting for a long time, which gives him a certain degree of confidence in successfully consecrating the gods under the sniping of the three god kings. Regardless of whether it is a dimensional demon or a believing god, in the process of becoming a god, certain celestial phenomena will always be born. FT 115191. The birth of a dimensional demon god, or a true god of faith, is not a matter of one person, but a matter of the whole world. God in the flesh. Prove with force. Not so. This road to becoming a god opened up by Sumu is really a matter of one person. So, when Sumu opened the body and conferred godhood, there was no vision that pervaded every plane and world, and there was no vibration of all laws and rules. So, including the three great gods, all the gods don't know. Sumu has opened up another road to conferred gods while believing in gods. When opening the body and conferring gods, some information appeared in Sumu's mind, including the concept of the incarnation of God, including the test he is about to face, etc. The biggest test facing the dimensional demon god is the endless resources and endless time needed before the half-planes advance to the world level. The biggest test facing the belief in the true God is the competition for priesthood and the sniping from the outside world, and the test that the fleshly body will face to confer a god. This is the energy storm. Before Sumu, there was no such evolutionary path as consecrating gods in the flesh and proving the way with strength. Naturally, there is no corresponding test of becoming a god. It was after Sumu opened the conferred gods that the corresponding test of this evolutionary path came into being. Energy storm. Void thunder. Sumu's mood was a little subtle when he knew the test that he was going to face when he became a god in the flesh. Yes, test. So, in the perception of the three god kings, the huge energy storm formed with Sumu as the center was filled with violent energy. Therefore, they believed that this was an attack on Sumu by the torrent of void energy, not a shelter only. They never imagined, under the cover of this terrifying and equally terrifying energy storm, Sumu is continuing his second road to consecration while continuing to condense his godhead. Double consecration. Do not. With the addition of the dimension demon god, it is a triple conferred god.
The center of the energy storm with a diameter of tens of thousands of kilometers, Sumu is not feeling well. The void energy storm is the test of his fleshly body. This kind of test is by no means a simple test, and it is over. Just like the catastrophe described in many novels that existed in the real world. If you pass it, you will have great strength, and the sky will be vast. The same is true of this energy storm. At this time, standing in the center of this huge energy storm, Sumu's body is constantly under the impact of the violent energy storm. This shock, no defense, no confrontation, no immunity, even the divine armor he just formed. It is difficult to play a role. Only with his own body and his powerful four-dimensional pressure, he can beat him. The violent energy continuously poured into the body, madly impacting every part of his body. At every moment, a great number of cells and tissues are annihilated under the onslaught of this rampant energy. At the same time, every now and then, a large number of new cells and tissues are also born. At this time, it can be seen that the benefits of Sumu's triple consecration are coming. If there is another fleshly body god in the game world, when the test of the fleshly body gods comes, naturally they can only rely on their own body to resist the attack of the energy storm. What about Sumu? He is not only a conferred god in the flesh, but also a conferred god by faith, and even a dimensional demon. Whenever the violent energy storm wiped out a piece of his cells, destroyed a piece of tissue, and melted a piece of flesh and blood, a steady stream of divine power would flow out of the Godhead, and new flesh and blood would be born again. And the Abyss world also came from a steady stream of a large number of world origins, replacing divine power when divine power was lacking, to give birth to his flesh and blood and heal his wounds. Destroyed again and again, reborn again and again. Often, this energy storm wipes out half of Sumu's body to the extent that only his skeleton remains. With the support of the steady stream of divine power and the origin of the world, new flesh and blood grew out of the skeleton. Once, twice, 10 times, X. When this process keeps repeating, every time the flesh and blood is born, it is stronger than before. This kind of impact from the energy storm is not only a test, but also a tempering. In this innumerable tempering, in this innumerable destruction and rebirth, every cell, every piece of tissue, every piece of bone, every piece of flesh and blood in Sumu, they are growing thousands of times at an unbelievable speed. At the beginning, Sumu also had to interrupt the cohesion of the Godhead, risking the failure of the Godhead cohesion, and invoked his own divine power and the origin of the Abyss world to continuously recover his injuries. As your body gets stronger and stronger, the ability to recover becomes stronger. Just relying on the self-recovery speed of his body, he can already keep up with the destruction speed of the energy storm. At this time, Sumu resolutely continued to focus on the cohesion of the Godhead, allowing his body to repair itself and withstand the tempering of the energy storm. Energy storm is a variable. When this energy storm was formed, the attack of the three upper gods representing the three god kings stopped. But Sumu dared not gamble, dared to put all hope on the energy storm. Perhaps, I don't know, when the three god kings lost interest in this energy storm, and once again ordered the three upper gods to interfere with their own god-conferring ceremony, and even came in person to interfere with their own god-conferring ceremony. 3 hours. This is Sumu's signal to the outside world. Based on the three major priesthoods, it takes 3 hours to condense the Godhead, which is an approximate range. If coupled with the interference of the energy storm and the evaluation of the three kings of the gods because of their own records, it would take at most 1.5 hours, or even an hour. Interference from the gods will come again. 1 hour. This is the time Su Mu set for himself. Only when he successfully condenses his own godhead within an hour can he be sure to complete the ceremony of conferring the gods. So, even with the energy storm stalling for himself, Su Mu has to speed up, body, in constant refinement. There is no need to use divine power to recover the injury. Su Mu finally has enough power of faith and divine power to continue to maintain the burning of the divine fire, and continues to put his own source power and perception of the three laws into the divine fire to build and condense own Godhead. A trace, a little bit. Along with this process, the illusory crystal that was originally just a dotted line slowly took shape. When more and more the power of the source and the perception of the three laws are filled into it, this crystal, which originally existed only on the illusory level, was gradually filled and materialized. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 50 minutes. During these 50 minutes, the impact of the energy storm on Su Mu became stronger and stronger, and the impact method also changed from pure energy influx to one after another huge void thunder, bombarding Su Mu's body. And in those 50 minutes, Su Mu's body has been annihilated again and again and reborn again and again. After experiencing these countless times of tempering, his body, which has already reached its limit, is 1,000 times stronger. 50 minutes. His godhead was condensed, and it was also at the last moment. Only in the last 10 minutes, he can completely fill this godhead, link it with the three laws of destruction, fear and depravity, and complete the fourth step of the consecration ceremony. Pity. In the last 10 minutes, the three kings of the gods couldn't wait. They can't see through the energy storm. After all, it is derived from the laws and rules of the game world. They know, after being bombarded by this huge energy storm for nearly an hour, the dark demigod who dared to provoke the three kings of the gods has not fallen, and is still condensing his godhead. Energy storm. To know, the energy storm of this level, even if a mid-level god enters it, has a great possibility of falling. Even if a high-level god enters it, it is very likely to be severely injured. It is only a consummation demigod that has achieved this level. If this dark half-god is truly conferred a god, and truly completes the leap to the level of life, then the three kings of the gods will feel a little chilled. So, the attack of the three upper gods started again. Sword of Justice, Storm Spear, Golden Dragon Claw. When the full blows of these three high-level gods only tore apart the energy storm of more than 3,000 kilometers, far from hurting Su Mu. The three upper gods joined forces without hesitation. 0. As for flowers, the radiant divine sword of justice slashed out, and once again tore the huge energy storm tore a gap of more than 3,000 kilometers, followed by the huge dragon claws shining with golden light. Not only did it prevent the closure of the huge gap, it also tore apart the energy storm of the last 2,000 kilometers. And at the same time when the two great gods worked together to tear apart the energy storm, at this moment, a silver-white spear that was hundreds of meters long and seemed to be completely formed by violent thunder rushed out. It penetrated the distance of more than 5,000 kilometers. Before the energy storm closes again, bombarded on Su Mu. Puff! A mouthful of dark, golden blood spurted out. The breath emanating from Su Mu's body vibrated violently. Never underestimate an upper god. And it is a high-level god who has harvested a lot of faith power, recovered a lot of strength, and released a blow with all his strength. If it weren't for the fact that in the past 50 minutes, Su Mu's body had been tempered countless times, and it had become 1,000 times stronger before the ceremony of consecrating the gods. Even so, 0. His process of condensing his godhead was almost interrupted. The more crucial. If at this last moment, the process of condensing the godhead of oneself is interrupted, it is not only the failure of the road to becoming a god of believing in a god, but also the road to conferring a god of the flesh will also fail under the backlash from the three laws. Just a little bit. The last point. After checking his injuries on Dalu and sensing his own ability to bear, Su Mu's eyes were full of ruthlessness, completely disregarding his own injuries and continuing to maintain the cohesion of Godhead. Storm Spear, since it can't be defended and can't counterattack. Then think of it as another form of tempering of the energy storm. My own ability to bear is strong, and the attacking ability of the main attacking god of storms is stronger. Once the attack of the three high-ranking gods starts, it will not stop. The three work together. The energy storm was torn apart again and again, and the storm spear was bombarded on Su Mu's body again and again. They couldn't perceive the exact situation of the energy storm center, but they could be sure that the storm spear, which gathered the full blow of the storm god, really bombarded Su Mu's body. A demigod, under the attack of the energy storm, he suffered the full blow of a superior god, not only did not fall, but even the process of condensing the godhead was not interrupted. This result made the three upper gods feel extremely terrifying. It is precisely because of this horror, even though he was struggling to consume the divine power he had just transformed into. The storm god also blasted his strongest attacks again and again, and bombarded Su Mu with the storm spear, which contained divine power and thunder, again and again. Twice. 5 times. 10 times. Under this kind of continuous bombardment, the dark golden blood in Su Mu's mouth spurted out like he didn't need money, and his perfect divine body, and powerful beyond its limit, was constantly weakening. Last 2 minutes. Last minute. Last half minute. When Su Mu's perfect divine body was almost unbearable, it nearly collapsed in the energy storm's void thunder and the full-strength bombardment of the storm god. Condensation of Su Mu's godhead. Finally done.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.